When to take MOTS-c Peptide? Now, this is a great question that came through because I think one of the biggest detriments of health is not having energy. And so one of the reasons why MOTS-c is such a powerful peptide to study is because it's what generates enormous amounts of energy in the body. And timing is critical because if you take this at the wrong time, you may not be accessing some of the benefits. Or if you're not stacking lifestyle with this design principle is going to be flushed down the toilet. So MOTS-c, it's this energy expression in your body, and it's more of an exercise-induced signal. So if you think of exercise, it puts stress on the body, and you think stress is bad, but actually that physical stress causes an adaptation. It's called a hormetic demand. And that adaptation triggers a different metabolic system in the body to get activated. And once you activate this new metabolic system, now your biology can start to adapt, and you can start to notice better endurance, better muscle building. You just feel more fit. And if you think about the same thing that happens when we go into fasted states, our body interacts metabolically. And this mechanism is what we're going to be talking about today, because the video, we're going to cover timing logic, but we're also going to be talking about how everything needs to be under the prescription of a provider who can help you find out if this is right for you or not. So I'm Regan Archibald, founder of Ageless Future. For those of you who want a precision-based medical approach and to really express your lifespan and health span, just go to agelessfuture.com and get your labs ran. So one of the most important things that's been demonstrated is this article that was published in 2021 in Nature. What they found is that MOTS-c, they found it's an exercise-induced communication pattern. They found when humans perform stationary cycling, MOTS-c levels in skeletal muscle and plasma increased. In fact, they increased almost 500%. Now, if you think about that, it's like, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that it was part of this physiological response to aerobic metabolic demand. And this has a direct implication for timing logic because MOTS-c's primary organ system is your skeletal muscle. And what is the largest organ in the body? It's your muscle. Dudes, you have about 40% of your total body weight is comprised of this organ called muscle. Ladies, it's about 35%. But the mechanism MOTS-c is working on is AMPK. And this AMPK activation is most relevant when muscles are metabolically active and primed for glucose uptake. This is one of the reasons why you don't want glucose circulating in the blood. You want to get it into the muscle. A lot of people say muscle is this glucose disposal system. Well, that's right. The more muscle you have, the quicker your blood can get the glucose out of the blood into the cells, and then it can be utilized as an energy source. And if your cells don't need it, instead of getting stored in fat, it can get stored in muscle. And one of the best hacks you can have is after every meal, move your body for 10 minutes. Just go for a walk, go play with your dogs, do some push-ups. It's really good just to get that glucose right into the cell. And so when you think about this timing, when would be the best time to take MOTS-c? Well, if you're activating AMPK, you've got this secondary energy pathway that's opened, you probably wouldn't want to take it before bed. And so you also want to consider this cortisol-driven metabolic activation, which happens earlier in the day. You want this influx of cortisol in the morning as we wake up, and that cortisol level starts to wane in the afternoon. But if you have this nice expression of cortisol and you add in some MOTS-c, that's going to support your daytime energy utilization and avoid any kind of potential stimulatory interface with your sleep architecture. Now, that said, there may be timing, like if you have some chronic fatigue syndrome, maybe talk to your provider. There may be a couple small times that you want to take it throughout the day, but pulsing MOTS-c is very critical. This is not a peptide you want to take every day. So once again, talk to your provider about this because MOTS-c, its mechanism interacts with glucose metabolism and this AMPK. And AMPK, you want it to be activating. Just like you you push on the gas pedal in your car and it accelerates, and then you push on the brakes, it slows down. You want certain times of the day and certain times of the month where your AMPK is more activated. And then you want it to calm down, and then mTOR can kick in, which is your rebuilding. And so when you have AMPK, though, one of the best things that happens is you have GLUT4 translocation. So the GLUT4 is what carries glucose into the cell without the presence of insulin, and that allows your muscles to start using this glucose in a very circulatory fashion. And so AMPK, it's primed to help respond to metabolic signaling. And this is why you may want to consider doing MOTS-c on a fasted state, like first thing in the morning, and then cycle it. For some of you, it may be twice a week. For others, it may be every other day. If you think about some of the things that have been demonstrated, like in 2025, the Nature Scientific report, what they studied is that this intraperitoneal MOTS-c significantly reduced fasting blood glucose. It also lowered hemoglobin A1c in these diabetic rat models with effects comparable to aerobic exercise. But MOTS-c can help combat this liver fibrosis that comes from having type 2 diabetes. And so they found that the metabolic time of administration, it mattered because it matters on how the signaling lands. And so if you look at longevity research on MOTS-c, looking at intermittent protocols, not this continuous daily administration, they found that in late life initiated intermittent protocol, they studied this 3 times a week dosing on old mice. They found that they could run 2 times farther than the untreated counterparts. And so they outperformed their untreated middle-aged counterparts entirely. Now, this principle behind this intermittent scheduling is consistent with how the body naturally uses MOTS-c as a pulse signal tied to metabolic stress events, not this continuous baseline mood. And as you're talking to your provider, this is all taken into consideration. It's either a small little microdose on a more frequent basis, but usually as far as the mice models go, and yes, there's a lot more human data that we need, this kind of pulsing every other day or 3 times a week seem to be the sweet spot where now you older people, maybe you can compete against your kids or your grandkids. How fun would that be? But the first test you want to get, fasting glucose, you want to get your fasting insulin, your hemoglobin A1c, your HOMA-IR, C-reactive protein. This just gives you an established baseline before you ever start entering into anything when it comes to peptides. And so if you have declining energy, if you notice that your metabolic flexibility is off where you just get the blood sugar drops or blood sugar spikes, and if you're exercising, this is where MOTS-c becomes this really amazing treatment because, if you look at the timing principle in the morning, before exercise, in a fasted window, you may be able to get this nice metabolic drive where you can get into the gym or get on your mountain bike or go for that trail run or get out your skis or snowboard, and you'll just notice more consistent energy. You also want to make sure you're giving your body a break from peptides. We are big believers in cycling peptides and stacking the right peptides. And that's what our providers at Ageless Future have discovered, is that if you're just turning on that signal, these peptides are just little strings of amino acids, and they're going in and they're re-engineering the ways your cells are communicating. And that vibration that happens when the cells can communicate properly, that's intended to stay turned on even when you're off the peptide if you've got the right lifestyle. One of my favorite herbs is called cordyceps, and cordyceps is one of the 3 treasures in Chinese medicine. And cordyceps, ginseng, and astragalus, these 3 herbs, which are foundational for anyone with autoimmunity, anyone who's really looking for longevity, those also activate AMPK. And so maybe consider stacking those with your MOTS-c, or when you cycle off, use some of those herbal medicines for a nice little boost of energy. So if you think about MOTS-c, the biggest thing is, does it generate energy? I look at health as your ability to generate energy, to do the things you love with the people you love. And I think MOTS-c may be one of these treatments in the future that will be life-changing for so many of us who have really robust longevity goals. Like maybe yours is to live to be 120, 130, 150. I'm sure someone watching this right now will break that record that John Clement set, which was 122 and a half. The oldest human on record and lived the longest life. Well, hopefully that will be one of you. So I'm Regan Archibald. Appreciate you watching this video. For those of you who want to take a deeper dive and find out if this is right for you, go to agelessfuture.com, meet with one of our providers, and they'll get the right testing ran for you so that you can practice precision medicine.